Welcome back, Mighty Mighty Souls. My name is Stephen Koss, and this is episode 2, Duality of Initiation, Journey to the Origin of the Universe, MDS on Gaia TV. And one thing I guess I'll come clean about right now is I'm a terrible speller. Thanks for you, D, pointing out I spelled initiation wrong. So you'll see me right on the board sometimes. Maybe it'll be a little sloppy just because the words get jumbled in my head and it doesn't come out quickly. But don't let that stop you from accomplishing your dreams. I became a writer. This was my last book, White Blazing, An American Pilgrimage, about my time on the Appalachian Trail. And I'm not very good at English. I'll tell you, my grammar's not that great, and I'm a bad speller, but don't let that get in the way of you expressing yourself and creating. There's other people out there to help you, editors, proofreaders, other authors. So, but let's get into this episode of Duality. This is going to be a tough one because this is very eye-opening for me. I mean, I must have watched that episode like 10 times at least. So if I get off balance or topic a little bit, just bear with me because it's some difficult material. But what is duality, right? In intellectuality, it's just another perspective of self, of the first dimension, of unity. But I never looked at it that way. I always saw it in the third dimension, in the 3D, as good and evil, or positive and negative. And it's funny, like, we were talking about unity so much yesterday, and I would say, like, man, this duality's got me down. Like, I know I'm a higher conscious being. I know there's this more than this third dimension, and I want to go there so I have that unity. And I'd be like, man, if I could just make contact with some higher conscious beings, and then I would understand that I wouldn't live in this duality, which is a complete misconception. And it's like, well, why did that even start out? You know, why did I feel that way? And there's a disconnection, right? Because we think of duality, we started in the first dimension in unity, and then it explodes out that thought, I am, what can I become? And in order to experience those in the physical, I need to create time and space. But as we're here on Earth, we start to get into survival mode. For instance, we have 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness in most places. And during the light, we feel comfortable because we can see if there's harm in our way, or we can get things done clear. And with the night, we could be attacked in the night by other humans or animals or whatever. So it scares us. And we go to this third dimensional, like it's biological, right? It's not really spiritual. I just push that. Because we have this overriding survivalness. And so then we associate good and bad, positive and negative. Or in actuality, it's just purpose, positive, and mission, the negative. And these two balls are constantly in motion, trying to see the other side. So you want to feel this unity, but in all actuality, duality is just another perspective of self, of unity. It's the hologram. It's getting formed. And we put this different 3D, good versus bad, heaven. If I do this, and I go to Mass every Sunday, and I do my prayers, and I show compassion, and I help others, and I do more harm, or more good than harm, that I will ascend to heaven, and I will find this unity with the light. Or if I do not do those things and I kill somebody and steal and I don't respect God, and then I can go down to hell and the darkness and flames. And that's that 3D duality that's like crunching you over and over and over. And that's not a spiritual thing, because it's coming from the first dimension. And in the first dimension, in the middle here, it's all just together. It's neutrality. And in order to experience, let's think of it like this. Use this great example. You're a librarian. Let's say you're a librarian in a Library of Congress, and you've read every single book, and there's all these great stories like hiking the Appalachian Trail, or you wanted to sail around the world. And you've read all these stories, but in that dimension, you can't experience them. So you create the second dimension through time and space with duality, and you have this purpose and mission constantly in movement. But the problem is, I mean, this is very eye-opening to me recently. Is this, like, I was living there. I was always good and bad. Why do bad things happen to good people? You know, and you're trying to live a stable life. You want a good job, a good home, a good school for your kids. And you always want to go towards the positive, because you associate this with the light, with heaven, and you associate this with the hell. When in actuality, that's not correct, right? These are working together, purpose and mission. And you have a stable life, and you've got everything working out for you. But the problem is the universe is not stable. These are constantly in motion. You're never, the positive and negative are just, they're constantly searching for the other side. If you get too close to one of the sides, it'll let you know. Think about it. Another great example in the show was, he was like, there's a light all the way over there, giant wall behind you. As long as you keep getting closer to that light, your shadow is going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And we have this perception of being stable, but the universe is constantly in motion, so you're fighting against it. And then you start heading this way, and you're like, yep, car broke down, lost my job, nothing's ever going to work out for me. And that's what we call it, you're in a crisis mode, right? Things are terrible. I don't know how I'm going to get by, blah, blah, blah. And that's just the universe kicking you in the ass and telling you that you're off purpose. And that mission needs to get you back in line. And for me personally, I've had that experience where one of my main problems was giving people a role to play. I'd say, do X, Y, and Z, and I'll do this. And I would follow through, and then people would break those roles, and it would destroy me. I would just get so upset. And Vince would tell me, he's like, Steven, you can't expect anybody to do anything. They're gonna act on their own will. Don't let it bother you. But I would see it in this duality of right and wrong, black and white, good and evil, instead of looking at it as purpose and mission. So how do you actually put this into practice, right, in the real world? Because you're going against a lot of programming your whole life of what is right and what's wrong in this heaven and hell. So if this information is new to you, this is difficult information for me. And like I said, I watched that episode 10 times, so this takes a long time to understand this. So instead of keep looking at it as a 3D perspective, with that biological, the light's good, the dark is bad, you have to look at it with the purpose and the mission, and know that this is just another hologram of the first. So you're already getting it, but how do you make balance of it in the real world, right? Okay, that's the tough part. We're searching always externally, all right, to fill that void, that separation, that disconnection. But instead of looking outward, we have that core right inside us, because all duality is another perspective of the first dimension, unity, the one self, one truth. So how do we do that in the physical? You got your left hand, your right hand, and you got the negative over here and the positive. And over here, let's say you're receiving through your left hand. And over here, you're giving. And the only way to experience that is through the heart muscle, the heart chakra. That's the center, that's the core, that's the neutrality. That's a difficult concept to grasp. Because you want to live in the 3D. You want to keep saying right, wrong, and instead of saying purpose and mission. And knowing that they're just in a constant flow of unity. Because it's just another dimension, another look. So when you look, instead of looking externally and you look through the heart muscle, you realize that that's part of unity. And then you can become in balance because you free yourself from your own perspective, from Stephen's perspective. Right? Instead of looking at it like that, we go back to the first episode and we know that it's all unity, it's all one, and that these are just different expressions of self. One thing I say a lot in the flows is like, don't see them, see me. If everything is just comes from one source, one mic, one God, then everybody in front of you is just another perspective of what the I am can become. And when you start to do that in the 3D, you'll really start to come into balance with the universe, with the higher self, and not just live in Stephen Koss. Like, think about, this is another great example he said. He's like, think about unconditional love. Oh, I can't even spell. Now, it was such an interesting term because he's like, in order to have unconditional love, you got to have a condition, right? And that condition is, there's me, then there's you. And that's where the disconnect comes in. Don't see them, see me. That's when the actual unconditional love will come, because you won't look and say, oh, there's Susie, blah, blah, blah. You'll say, there I am, in a different perspective. And because I've already loved myself so much, and I know that I'm just a creation in different dimensions, expressing myself to find out who I can become, that I will show the love for you, because I will see you and me exactly. I will see that. I will know there is no difference. That's a hard thing to get. Think about it like, this is a good one. I talk about like forgiving yourself. When you're on a plane, let's say it's having a tough time, you're hitting some turbulence, cabin pressure goes down, masks come out, everybody's freaking out. What do they say? They like, you put the mask on first, and then you help everybody else. You forgive yourself first. You love yourself first. And once you know you love yourself so much, and then you see them and me, the unconditionalness will just flow. What was the other great example of a tree he was talking about? It was like, think about trees. He's like, they don't help other trees. They don't help them grow taller. They sit there, they experience it. A tree falls, it gives back. Everybody learns the lesson, like the hero's journey. Come back and they all experience it together. But I guess the main thing with duality is just understanding that there's not right and wrong, right? There's not a line. There's not good and evil. All there is neutrality. Think about, I would say this too, Charles Manson, Gandhi, right? They come from the same faucet. There's not really right and wrong. Or something's terrible in the third dimension, you say, oh my God, how could somebody do this? Blah, blah, blah. That's just an expression of what I can become. Is it lifting your, are you learning another lesson? Yeah, you're moving on, but when you look at it, you can show that person love immediately. That's done the worst thing in the world. That's killed children. And you can see you and them instead of seeing in the 3D heaven and hell, light and dark, that you will be able to give somebody unconditional love. Because there won't be that condition, won't exist anymore. There won't be. You'll just see them and me. Let's see if there's any other points I want to make here. I love Wu-Tang Clan, and one of the lines I always love is like, why do I need to go to heaven? They ask. Because Earth is already in space. That's an interesting concept. Why do I need to go to up here to the light to feel the void, the separation of unity, when the Earth is already in space and it's a creation of the first dimension of unity that is expressing itself to learn who I can become? Because I get trapped up too much in I am as Stephen, as opposed to I am as all. And we keep searching externally to fill that void. And we look at duality as a bad thing. But in essence, it's just the explosion of time and space going through and seeing all the different dimensions. And we got bogged down in this biological 3D, and we then drilled this into our heads over and over again. And so when you get into a conflict with somebody, and they're blah, blah, they're yelling at you about something they felt you did them wrong on. And immediately you start in your lower chakra, that survival mode kicks, and you get in your gut, and the emotion starts kicking, and you want to rock them back, right? You got to know you're just waving that red flag to the bull, and instead of going, let's slow down, breathe that out, let the logic take over, and if you can really, truly look at them through duality and a correct, just another perspective of you, then you'll be able to get to the bottom. You'll be able to see through that stuff. But emotion is tough to rock. It's going to take a lot of practice. I know in my life it's come into play. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going on right now, but the emotion's rushing, and I got to acknowledge that. And the understanding, acknowledgement, and then acceptance, it'll go a long way. But this just really opened my eyes to understanding duality in a different perspective, right? It's just another perspective. It's a hologram to express the self, and I don't need to get stuck in and bog it down in some box where I can fit it in, and say, that's the halfway point. You cross that line, it's a thin line, don't cross it. Then I'm going to have issues. And it's really that I am having issues. It has nothing to do with you. I got a problem. And if I know already that everything's already all good, that's the other thing you got to understand. Like, there's duality is just, it's not even really real. It's there because you need to experience and express yourself. But all actuality, it's just a hologram of the first dimension of unity. Why is that thought in my head? Now it's gone. So just finding that balance with it, understanding that you can't look through those eyes of right and wrong, of heaven and hell, and understand that it's purpose and mission. You got this plus, you got the negative. But if it's all coming from the first dimension is just neutral. So everything's already all good. Everything is put together exactly how it's supposed to be. And you're just experiencing these different things. So don't get caught in that duality of everyday stuff when it's bogging you down. I guess is the point I'm trying to make. And I know that won't happen overnight. You're like, I get it, Steve. Yep, you're right. Man, I get that. I agree. But to put that into play, it just needs to be fought into your head. I mean, you got to think of all the times all this other stuff has been told to you. If you're having 40 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and you popped in and you watch a video for whatever, 15, 20 minutes, now what's the rest of the day hitting you with? it's gonna hit you pretty hard, and it's a little space for something like that to grow. So you have to go over the material constantly. And like I said, it's not easy material. It's very difficult for me. But it did open my eyes these last couple of days. I was like, whoa, now I get it. I can't believe I was bitching so much about wanting to go somewhere else where there wasn't duality. And I wanted to go externally. It's just another mistake. Instead of just going in, receiving, getting that through the neutrality of the heart, and then giving, and then being in balance. All right, I think that's pretty good. We'll look that over, and again, got any questions or comments, throw them down. But smile big, shine bright. Peace.